Welcome to Food Certifications in 15 with PJRFSI. Find out more or receive a free quote at PJRFSI.com.
And welcome to Food Certifications in 15. I'm Joel Verke with Johnson Registrars Food Safety Incorporated, or PJRFSI. And I'm joined today by Dr. John Spink. He is the Director of Food Fraud Prevention Academy and the Assistant Professor in the Department of Supply Chain Management at the Michigan State University Business College. Dr. Spink, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's always great to be here. You're a great organization for me to work with. I always learn a lot. You keep me on my toes, and hopefully I give you some good information along the way as well.
Oh, you always do. You always do, which is why you're one of our first guests here, of course. Many of you watching don't know, Dr. Spink and Johnson Registrars Food Safety have been, I would say, just collaborating, help each other. Just it's a great relationship, and you are a wonderful guy to work with.
Well, thanks. And that's been a key, along the way. I don't know how many years it's been that we've been working together, either visiting together or being on the webinars and now in the podcast. And everything that we talk about is communication is key. The world is constantly changing. The needs are changing. The marketplace is changing. Consumers are changing. And that's where there's a need for food safety audits and experts coming in to look at the system. And then also your role helping companies expand to look at these new issues and new changes, and that's where I think I come in.
Absolutely. One thing, when I asked you if you'd be willing to be on the podcast, you very graciously said yes, absolutely. I said, what do you want to talk about? First thing that came out of your mouth, food fraud. Obviously, this is something substantially more about than the average bear. I know it's, you are the director of the Food Fraud Prevention Academy after all. Food fraud, before I go to the next question, Dr. Spink, when did food fraud really come to the forefront in our industries?
Yeah, well, that's always an interesting question because you want to kind of say what's modern and how far back do you want to go. Pliny the Elder talked about it in Greek times. There's actually the Song Dynasty first had poems about different types of fraud in tea. So let's say modern food fraud. And that was really Sudan red color in 2007. It showed up a little bit, kind of shows up a little bit in spices. That just kind of made things kind of interesting, but that was an oddity. Then melamine. Melamine was it. That's around 2007-ish, melamine in horse meat, in infant formula, things like that. That got us terrified and working on it. That's when things really took forward. And then horse meat hit around 2011-ish. And that's when people like the Global Food Safety Initiative really said this is a food safety root cause. And so food fraud is a root cause of a food safety incident. A HACCP type system is a quality control prevention, big picture, and that's where food fraud really fit into the food safety management systems at that point.
Okay, so really, 2007 really comes to the forefront. 2011, get the horse meat. GFSI starts to get involved in saying, okay, this is real. We need to really watch this. That was 14 years ago. Where are we at now with food fraud? Is it solved, or is this something that
right.
it will always be a part of our world?
Well, there's a joke that some people say that food fraud is the second oldest profession. That as soon as there was commerce, there were people cheating each other, and actually it was there was French wine that was labeled as Roman wine. So from very, very early on in commerce, it's occurred. So basically, you could say crime. Is crime going to always occur? Well, it does to some extent. So food fraud. The thing that's interesting about food fraud is that it was really, we had a high level of awareness from melamine and horse meat. Then GFSI implemented it. It was in the standard 2017, required in 2018. So people did their first year, and then the second year is where we normally see standards or innovations really take hold. Because you did it once, you did it twice, you think, okay, well, I need to go back and look at it. Well, what happened around 2020, right when there was going to be this big innovation? It was COVID. So at that point, everyone's trying to figure out how do you plug into a Zoom call and how do you get assurance of supply? And things like longer term prevention, fundamental strategies were definitely on the back burner. All of a sudden, then you come out of COVID. Here we are, 2025, 2024, that time period, Ukraine Russia, disruptions around the world, the Suez Canal gets blocked, inflation. We've got short supply. Think about cocoa, the price and supply of cocoa. All of a sudden, we now kind of waking up to see that there's a massive fraud opportunity from all these different factors.
Dr. Spink, when I'm listening to you speak here, the one big question that comes into my mind here, okay, because we started out in 2007 and again in 2011 with products that were tainted, and it was on the international scene. Is this happening domestically now? Was it happening domestically 14 years ago? Is this something? Yeah, the vast majority of our listeners here, listening are going to be here in the States or in Canada. Is this something that's happening in North America just as much as it's happening around the world?
Well, that's another great question. Number one, it's really hard to get actual data. It's called the dark figure of crime. We don't know what crime we caught and what we didn't. We don't know how much it is, and so it's really hard to get data. But we look at incidents that we found, and really, there's probably just as much fraud occurring from international transit as there is domestically. Domestically might be more the short waiting, might be country, might be dilution, but we really do see it. It happens all over. And the thing is, like domestically, is that product just doesn't get inspected at a border. There still can be food safety risks. Think about the cinnamon, lead chromate in cinnamon, in applesauce. So that was in the U.S. And that's led to a lot of further testing for lead chromate everywhere, and it shows up at different places, maybe smaller scale than some of those big things like melamine, but fraud occurs, domestically or internationally. It's really all around us. What we need to do is we need to just understand our own vulnerabilities, and then be aware. If you leave your front door unlocked, you're more vulnerable than if you lock it. If you leave your keys in your car unlocked, wherever you're parking, you're more vulnerable than if you just lock the door and take your keys with you.
Okay. Has food fraud changed over the years, over the last decade? Are they going about it differently? Obviously, as you talk about crime and this the nature of crime. Crime evolves just like everything else. They want to remain in business. How has it changed, if it has?
Well, I'll say here's a free tip to you. True crime, food crime. The true crime series. It is absolutely amazing the type of innovation that criminals will come up with. And you'd think if they could just spend some of that effort in the legitimate side, they'd be fine. But criminals are very, very adaptive. They're intelligent, they're resilient, often well-funded, patient, very different than E. coli. That's the key. So these are intelligent adversaries. So they're constantly changing. Whenever we do one thing, they're going to change to the next thing. And that's a real key and a concern along the way. But what we do know is that the basic assessment, the basic way we look at vulnerabilities is the same. It's been the same since the first article we published on it in 2011, GFSI and others. You're looking at broadly your business, doing these vulnerability assessments, all the things that you talk to your clients about, and you're having meeting the standards. You're doing that same broad assessment, and then you're looking to how to prevent it. Now, of course, the different types of fraud occur, so we have to do different things along the way. But the thing that's so fantastic and efficient is that the same methods and processes we use to look at it, the same screening is the same as it was since the very beginning.
Okay. I've got a lot of customers, a lot of clients. We obviously work in the same industry. We work in the certification industry. You work in consulting, and you work in the education area, and all that. Let's just say Jane at XYZ company in Kansas City is making ready-to-eat or frozen entrees, right, for a retail session. That's what they make. They get, some kind of a burrito feel. Mm-hmm. They got some that are more this and that, right? They're obviously got a supply chain. They've got maybe 40, 50 employees, not a giant company, but not small either. How do you go about, you're listening to you talk about this, okay, how do I find out if this is happening in my supply chain? Where do you even start?
Yeah. Well, that's challenging. If it's not passing across your desk right now, you might not know if you're even vulnerable or if things are occurring. The thing that from the very beginning, the very first article that we did was looking at, a gap analysis. So it's to step back and look at yourself and ask a few questions about the way that you're looking at your business. And it's the process first. Let's think about something that's more practical for people. Let's think about your own health. So if you haven't been to the dentist or the doctor in 5 years, you're stressed about that. Let's say, you're worried, whatever. I mean, you could be whatever, but you haven't been there. So what do? Well, number one, if you get on the internet and start searching, you're going to think you have every disease known to man.
Yeah.
And you're going to find every solution out there that, hey, for this money, you can do this or this laser treatment or that. So the last thing you want to do is just going to chase things. You want to go to the specialist. You want to go to that primary care. You want to go to the dentist. You want to go to the doctor. And what they'll do first is a very basic, like a gap analysis. They'll look at you from top to bottom. And that's what we have that we've talked about a lot. It's looking back at your previous audits, what were written in there, look at your own process. Do you have a process? You look at, when did you last do a vulnerability assessment? When did you last update the document? When did you last update your food fraud prevention strategy that's required in the certifications? When did you update the document of that? And then to look across that type of incidents in your field. So let's say that it's burritos and you buy a red pepper, then you could look at that, or hot peppers. You could look at jalapeno pepper fraud, in the market, and you start to look a little bit at the products you have. So the big thing is to take a methodical approach, but don't go. You don't have to jump in the deep end right away. You just need to do a quick gap analysis, and just to see, where are you? Now, some people find out very quickly that they're drowning and they got big problems. But the thing is, then you've got this gap analysis that identifies where. That would be, again, like going to the doctor and they say, hey, on the top of your head, bald Dr. Spink, you've got some concerning skin cancer. So you go to the dermatologist for that. They're not sending me to whatever the neurosurgeon or orthopedic surgeon for knees. They're sending me to someone very specific. Sometimes you do find things that are an emergency, but then you act on them because you've defined it as an emergency.
Sure. Fascinating. Dr. John Spink, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Thank you. Have a great day. Appreciate it.
All right. Dr. John Spink is the director of Food Fraud Prevention Academy. Find him online. He's also the assistant professor in the Department of Supply Chain Management at the Michigan State University Business College. Again, thank you so much for joining us. This is Food Certifications in 15.